Difficulty is sort of what makes a game a game. Well, in the sense that since a game that isn't really difficult in any way, like maybe a Telltale game, will be more of an interactive experience than an actual game with gameplay. But for some games, the difficulty is also part of the experience. These games aren't difficult for the sake of being difficult. In the world of the game, there's also reason for the challenge. I mean, it only makes sense that a blood-starved beast wouldn't be defeated so easily.
Hey! No, come on! Come on!
It sucks, however, it only will until you win.
You fucking bitch! Let's go!
Though, throughout a fight, you're still constantly given new ideas of what to do whenever you make a mistake, so it never really feels like you've hit a dead end. Sometimes you get close and still lose. I myself say this is more of a sign to just give it another try than to give up, since if I did it once, I should be able to do it again. But when you try again and lose again to a point that it feels like it's random, the game becomes unfun and it will still be unfun even after you complete the boss. There it is, the problem and the point of this video. When a fight has unavoidable hitboxes, has poorly telegraphed attacks, issues high punishments for small mistakes, or takes way too long to complete, it won't matter what skill level, it'll always feel more like an obstacle in your journey than a challenge to test your skill. Because it takes no skill, only luck and a whole lot of fucking patience. Some developers kind of embrace that feeling of unpredictability, like with Spelunky or Fall Guys. With others, they try to lower the meaning of death by placing checkpoints in nearby boss rooms. And a boss that would be considered unfair would just be placed somewhere non-vital, like an extra. Sometimes it's kind of difficult to control the fairness of bosses like in a level-based game, mainly because a lot of stats are automatically updated according to your level, which could be inaccurate to your skill level or the items you have. Or on the other hand, where a player goes into a high-level area because they don't know where else to go.
Hey, in the baby starting area, and you can just aggro him from anywhere on the map. Oh, there he is now, hey!
Why here?
Hey, that's a good question. Why are you here?
In these cases, you can't really blame them since it's sort of part of the game, but we'll get into whether it's part of the game is an appropriate reason or just a lousy excuse later. But I mean, can't open world games just check the items you have or place barriers or warnings for high level areas? So remember when I used Hollow Knight as an example for good checkpoint placement? Well, I came back to try and get through this area without using the Shade Cloak. And not only did I die once, but by the time I was done, I was left with only 2 HP. Listen, if you're going from this checkpoint to this boss room, 70% of your time is going to be spent getting to the boss rather than fighting it. Even if it is a skill issue, you shouldn't have to go through a fucking obstacle course to fight a boss you've already died to. Risk of Rain 2 and a lot of other roguelikes are basically what I mean when I mention unpredictability. All of your items are randomized, all of the enemies, the stages, the bosses as well, and so the screen soon enough turns to this. But it doesn't matter, because this isn't some obstacle, it's kind of the game itself. Risk of Rain 2 doesn't have an ending, it only loops every 5 levels. If you die, it doesn't really feel like a reset, even though it is. Because you'll always die, just at a different point in the game. However, not all roguelikes are infinite. Some do actually have endings. Does this make me have to reevaluate my argument? No, at least for the most part, because both The Binding of Isaac and Enter the Gungeon, roguelikes with actual endings, are fair in their own way. Because instead of increasing in quantity, the enemy types change and do more damage to avoid having to overload the screen with hitboxes. Because of the way that enemies move and how levels are structured, it's difficult to defend Spelunky since it's what I would consider legitimately unfair. My first playthrough of Spelunky 2, which maybe took around 40 hours in total playtime, was done with both shortcuts and teammates. I returned to the game hoping to complete it all by myself and from beginning to end. And even though I wanted to just keep trying, with each death I noticed how unbearably difficult it was to not just quit the game. Like, holy, the amount of insane bullshit that can get you killed. And once you respawn, you hear the music, the same one song, the same enemies, the same traps, and all the same bullshit. But since I completed the game, I know how short it is, so I never feel as if it's impossible or even that unlikely to happen. But by the end of the day, I'll only have beaten it with luck. When it comes to this, I feel like it's important to be able to tell the difference. No, I have not been talking about difficulty in games. I have been talking about the uncertainty and outcome that happens when an enemy takes up half the screen. The difference is that difficult games are just difficult. The way you can tell that is if a good enough player can first try it 10 out of 10 times. The uncertainty comes when that player only has a higher chance of winning instead of a guaranteed win. Counting out all other factors, there's no good reason a speedrunner should fail a boss who's genuinely fair. These games might require a level of precision that could feel unfair, but for most of these games, there's usually always a lot of checkpoints anyways. Like at the start of a level or screen, which can usually be returned to even after quitting the game, thereby allowing you to learn the rhythm of the level and make progress. I know it's kind of debatable, but I need to put this out there. If a thing that's part of the game makes me want to stop playing the game, there's a problem. There's no objective way to tell if a game is good or bad, but if a part of your game only ever negatively impacts your game, I think it's fair to call it bad. Not that the entire game would then be objectively bad, but that part of the game could very easily affect a lot of the other things, and therefore ruin the experience. Sort of like grinding for levels in MMOs, long hits done in hack and slash games, unbalanced characters in fighting games, stiff controls in movement shooters, or maybe poorly thought out courses in racing games. Okay, I feel as if it's gonna be basically impossible for me to formulate a complete summary of my thoughts on this last subject, so I urge you to check out this guy's video on the topic. It's not directly related to what I'm talking about in this video, but it's a good follow-up. You know what's an even better follow-up? You liking and subscribing, or even just commenting your opinion if you want to further the conversation. And just so you know, I'm not a YouTuber, I just make videos. Please don't expect me to have another upload done in a week or something, but I am going to keep making videos. And so with that, I would like to thank you for watching.